let me tell you, Sonia is like super duper special to me because I was actually just now sharing with Judy that or was it Keisha? One of the previous coaches, I was sharing that a lot of the things that were, it was Keisha, I was talking about the barriers to love because Keisha was talking about being single and moving towards, getting yourself healed to prepare yourself for a relationship. And it's something I write about a lot in my book, just about the pain of going through the different challenges with separation and divorce and entering a space of dating again. And one of the reasons why I really wanted Sonia to join, guys, is because a lot of the remnants to just my feelings within about myself and about my ex and processing those feelings. A lot of that happened with Sonia in just the last couple of years, and it really, it's like your work on yourself is never really done, right? And I thought, Sonia is actually a therapist, and I thought it would be good to have her on to give us just her own view of, I went through this and these are the tools that I used, and know things that people are facing, especially couples, because I think a lot of couples are spending time together in ways that they never did. I understand domestic violence rates are up, and people saying they're getting divorces are up because they're now actually faced with each other in a time when it's really challenging, just in general, even as an individual, right? So, so Sonia joins us with a lot of years. This is her life's work. Well, second part of life's work.
Yes.
And she actually has helped lots and lots and lots of persons. I've recommended lots of persons to her and will continue doing so. So she has a lot of experience in this space, and I thought it would be such a blessing for her to share and to give us some of the tools that she's recommending, especially during this time. So welcome, Sonia. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, Stacy. Thanks so much. And thanks for that affirmation just now. That was really confidence boosting. Thank you so much. It's great to be here with you.
Thank you. So why don't we start off with maybe just a personal overcoming story of your own. It can be recent, it can be long time, and then we can move into maybe some of the tools that one or two really good ones, because Sonia gives really good tools that you can actually use to support whatever it is you're experiencing and shifting from that into a more positive space.
Mm-hmm. Okay, wow, Stacy. It's not often that the spotlight is shone on me and my story, so that's a little odd for me. But I will share. So it's so funny. I have to share something really funny with you. So I have to be honest, for the last 2 or 3 days, I've been thinking a story of overcoming adversity, and I just couldn't come up with anything. And I even went to bed, and I think it was on my mind through my dreams and everything. Like, am I so shallow? Have I never had any stories or something? Anyway, so then I woke up this morning, and it's the first thing my husband said to me. So what's your day like? And I said, I've been trying to think, have I ever had to overcome adversity? And I can't think of anything. He said, oh, I have 3 of your adversities right here. Would you like them? And I couldn't stop laughing. I'm like, really? And he hit me with one, which I have to admit, I just kind of batted away and moved right past it, sort of a thing. And he said, well, that one is kind of deep, so you may not want to share that one. And then I thought, look, if I'm going to be authentic, I'll share the most difficult one. So one of the biggest events, one of the most profound events of my life, I think, and I think is a big part of my identity,
Mm-hmm.
is that I probably shared this with you already, Stacey, that when I was 10, my mother died to cancer, and she had been ill for, I think she might have been ill for about 5 years, and I was aware of it, of her illness, maybe a year or two before she died, because she was bedridden and so on. And and then as an adult, I realized that I think I kind of banished her from my memory in a way. Um, and there are two important times where I had to confront that fact that I had almost deliberately done that. And it was once when I had to, I was renewing my passport and I needed to get her birth certificate to show that I was Jamaican. So I'm not born in Jamaica, and I had to get her birth certificate to demonstrate that I was a Jamaican by descent.
Right.
And I went to the Spanish Town RGD to get her birth certificate, and the questions that they asked me I couldn't answer. So they said, well, when was she born? And I had no idea. And they said, okay, so where was she born? And I had no idea. And they said, okay, what? And of course, I'm getting feedback from the person asking me, like, what kind of person doesn't know this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And Stacey, right there, I had a meltdown because I started thinking, I can't remember these things. And I immediately went to my daughter is 10. I had a 10-year-old daughter at the time. And I thought, well, my mother died when I was 10. I can't remember anything about her. You want to tell me that if I died right now, I would not even be a memory to this child?
Wow.
And then I started thinking, so not only is she dead, her memory is dead. Like, how does that happen to somebody? And could that happen to me, to my children? That, it's like I never existed.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of hit me between the eyes, So, and that I had to kind of confront that. Like, what was that about? A child of 10 has memories. So where are they, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
And then when I tried to remember, I realized that I could only remember bad memories, like when she was angry at me or when she reprimanded me. I couldn't remember anything positive. I couldn't remember warmth or I just can't, and I still can't remember. I have difficulty remembering that. And then one day, my brother and I were talking about something, and he remembered something from childhood. And he remembered it with so much fondness, and I remembered it with so much pain. I thought it was so horrible. Anyway, so I realized there was something there, And the most wonderful thing that I think has helped me is one day that somebody said to me, so your father was a widower for maybe about 25 years then before he got married. Meaning, my mother had died and
then
he
it took
didn't
him.
get married. Yeah, he got married like 25 years later. And when they said that, that was the first time I had associated that label widower with my dad. And I realized that I had no notion of his pain. That I always thought of myself as a motherless child, but never thought of him as a widower. So it's like I had no empathy. I realized I had not had any empathy for him and what he must have gone through and how that must have affected him, having to look after 2 young children and so on. And so began, I think that person, just by using that label, widower, began to plant a seed for me of empathy. Like, you weren't in this alone. Somebody else had an experience too. And in fact, that also explained a lot about my relationship with him, how difficult. Suddenly I could see what he was grappling with. And I could see things from his eyes. And I guess that helped me to then try and say, wow, what did my mother go through? I have a very keen perspective of the loneliness I felt and the fear of not having a mother defender, as it were, of my child. I had a very clear understanding of my own emotions, but I had never I guess a 10-year-old child doesn't know a lot about empathy necessarily. So it forced me to think about what life was like for her and
Yeah.
what's it like to be very ill. She had colon cancer, which metastasized all over her body. And so, what's it like to be ill, to have a terminal diagnosis, and have two children under the age of 8 that you
Wow.
feel like you're going to leave behind? I'd never thought about that before, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And such so began a lot of empathy for her, you know. And I could, I guess, start to see a human being come to life in front of me, a human being with human emotions.
Yeah.
And I could identify with her because my children at the time were about the same age, and I started to think, well, what's that like? How would I feel if I got such a diagnosis now? And I think that kind of helped me a whole lot, you know. It's the process of trying to empathize, because so often what we see on the exterior is really secondary to what's going on inside people. And we often judge our relationships, we judge how people feel about us based on what we see on the outside, which is not always a very clear reflection of what's going on the inside. Um, and and I think once I was able to do that, I was sort of able to come to peace with my own grief, I guess, my own grief at loss, my own, um, grief is just a lot of complicated emotions, and realizing that maybe I was kind of angry at her, at God for leaving me, angry at her that she was ever angry at me. You know, how could she be angry and then take off into God knows where? Like, what is that, for crying out loud? you know. So I guess life gave me the opportunity to look beyond myself to someone else, and to try to connect with the pain and the loss that someone else, not only my mom, but maybe what my dad must have felt too. And and also, I guess, a perspective on my own loss, and helping me to connect with grief that other people experience.
Yeah.
You know,
That's good.
yeah, that's my story.
Wow. That's deep. That's really, really deep. And it actually resonates around, I think, as when you become a parent, it's almost just a natural extension of yourself to worry about leaving your child or losing your child, you know. And so, to, you know, whenever I talk to persons who have gone through the experience on one side of the fence or the other, it's just it's quite presencing. That's the word. And I think what has happened here with this global experience that we're having is that we're all a lot more present, not just to our own suffering, but to that of everybody else.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
it's like, you know, this large consciousness of suffering that is around us, but I am challenged with the focus on the suffering and not on the beyond that, on the fact that you can overcome it, on the fact that you can have an experience and constitute resilience because of it, in the midst of it, you know.
mhm.
And how do you help people to get to that? Have you seen more persons coming in for therapy? No.
Well, yes, but to be honest with you, Stacey, I'm not sure if it's just that. But so all my sessions now are virtual. I'm doing telehealth, so I'm not sure if it's just that I'm more accessible now. you know, you don't have to leave work and figure out how to get to me. So perhaps there's that. But I'm seeing a lot more people now. Or it is that having to deal with a pandemic compounds whatever difficulties that
Yeah.
they were experiencing
Yeah.
before. I think perhaps it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's the age old adage, right? That, you know, COVID throws upon us a lot of uncertainty, as you just said. And with uncertainty comes fear and anxiety. And, and I think it's age-old adage where people quite often are trying to control things which they can't control, and therefore missing out on the opportunity to control things which they can. You know, that might sound cliche, but it's true, because one of the things we definitely cannot control is an initial feeling of anxiety and fear that must come when you don't quite know what the answer is. You don't quite know what next week is going to look like. You don't know what your financial future looks like. You don't know what your social world is going to look like. You don't know what you, etc., 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 you know. So there must be some anxiety, and that some degree of anxiety and fear is a indicator of health rather than an indicator of maladjustment, as it were, you know.
Well, can I just tell you that you maybe need to say that again, because the way that fear and anxiety are talked about in general is like it's always equal to bad.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Always. There's no in between.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And I think that sort of rigid definition or cataloging or categorizing of those emotions is part of the problem. So that because they're in that bucket called bad, as soon as they come up, we panic about having them. We panic about ourselves. We judge ourselves. Like we start saying, I'm not coping. I'm not handling this because I'm feeling this. When
okay.
So we start to struggle with the emotions themselves, and we start to judge ourselves immediately and judge the future by what we're feeling now, because we see this emotion itself as unhealthy in some way, or the problem.
Yeah. So then the emotion is the problem, and then you become the problem.
The emotion is the problem, and your efforts to somehow, and your struggle with that becomes the problem. You're struggling with emotion because none of us, and let me rephrase that, too few of us are able to sit with that emotion and try to figure out and validate it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, we're trying to deal with kids at home. We're not coping. There's a lot going on. We can't manage the kids and give them a schedule and stick to their schedule, plus stick to ours and keep them entertained and keep them doing what they're supposed to be doing. We're not coping with all of that. So we're feeling a sense of inadequacy. We're feeling a sense of not being able to cope, not being good enough, not being, you know, all legitimate feelings, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of new things on our plate, and those feelings, we start to almost define ourselves by that, and we shouldn't be this thing, we shouldn't be this feeling, you know what I mean? When what it is, it's just an emotion that's telling us, look, something is important to us, right? Like that our children be entertained, and so if we're not giving them everything we want to give them, we're going to feel this way. So it's a legitimate emotion, and that's what it is. And be at peace with that.
You actually taught me a tool that I don't even know if it's easy to do in the time that we have, but when you're in relationship, whether it's an intimate one, or you know, familial, or and even in some instances with the kids. Let's start with the kids in this particular instance, but and we talk about the emotion coming up and hooking you. And guys,
oh, Stacy, you remember?
Oh God, well, first of all, Marlon talks about the hook all the time. So we can't escape the hook, right? But guys, basically the whole concept that Sonia taught me was where I would get into this space of like feeling sad or feeling angry at a situation that may have happened with somebody else. So let's say right now you're at home, you've been at home with your person, whether it maybe some of us are even living with our parents after a while we hadn't, but because of whatever situation, right? Or we got stuck somewhere, or you're in your house with your partner. or you're at home by yourself and you get hooked with sadness or you get hooked with anger. And the hook is that that's all you can feel. It's like, like emotions tend to come in like a wave. So they come, you feel it, and then it's like there and 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 there, right? So for me, one of the things that would happen to me is that a lot is that I would find myself upset at like one of my kids, or I would be upset at my ex, or I'd be upset about my ex, even though he's not in my life anymore. I would have this upset feeling. And then my mind just starts to make a movie reel about the feeling. And I have every right to have that feeling, and in some instances, if it's like my partner now and he's in my space and he says something, it's like he's gonna say the exact thing that's gonna make the feeling valid and make me say, yes, that's why I feel I'm not crazy. That's why, So Sonia taught me this tool about how to kind of unravel that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Which one are you referring to, Stacey? Tell me, because I have a couple under my belt.
Which is where you kind of like identify that you've been hooked by the emotion, and then you start to kind of break it out with specific questions. I think.
Right.
Okay. Yeah,
okay. Great. So a lot of times too, we get really tied up in knots because we're feeling a lot of different emotions, or more than one emotion. So that's easy to get us tied up in knots, especially too when the emotions kind of contradict each other. So I'm feeling angry at you because you haven't left your clothes at the door like I would. So that's what I'm finding a lot too. Partners' attitude towards COVID is very different, and it's driving each other crazy too, right? So I'm angry at you because you haven't stripped down at the door and you traipse through the house with your COVID shoes, right? And I am angry at you, but at the same time, I appreciate that you did something else. Or at the same time, I appreciate that other people have bigger problems. They don't even have the COVID shoes, or they don't have a home to go home to at the same time. So I'm kind of contradicting myself in a way, like I'm feeling ungrateful, like I should be making such a big deal about this. I need to settle down. So I'm angry at myself for being angry. So there's all this, it's a knot. Okay. Yeah. And so what I did with you, I think, I can't remember if I actually took out the feelings wheel. Did I take out the feelings wheel with you?
No,
so
you had me draw on a sheet to unravel myself.
Okay, great. So I said, I think I tried to say, okay, let's see if we can identify either what you're feeling, give me even one feeling that you have. And like you might have said, I'm angry. Great. I said, okay, search around. What else can you feel? And we searched around to figure out what feelings we could feel. There's also this wonderful mindfulness exercise where you kind of sit quietly, check in with your breath and check in with your body, because all the time our feelings manifest physically. Okay. All the time, but we're seldom aware of it because or these difficult feelings at least. So if you're feeling angry, you better believe you're in some degree of fight or flight. All right. So your heart rate is probably a little elevated. There's probably a lot more metabolic activity in the fight and fleeing parts of your body, which is your arms and your legs. That's happening. Or you're trying to take in more oxygen to get these muscles activated so your chest will feel something. Anyway, but there's a lot of physiological things happening in your body that when you feel these emotions. And some people are more sensitive to some areas than others. So for example, Stacey, when you get angry, if you were to sit quietly and just meditate on it a little bit, you might find that it's your chest that feels the emotion of anger. If I were to do it, I might find that I feel it in my throat. I feel like there's a ball welling up in my throat. Or some people might feel their gut expanding or tightening or hardening or different things. So there's this wonderful mindfulness exercise I take people through to scan their body to see where are the emotions being manifested. I don't think you and I got that
No, I have
opportunity.
to all over, everywhere.
but once you identify the feeling and you sit with it, I force you to describe it. I ask you all kind of questions. Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it square? Is it irregular? Is it expanding? Is it moving? Is it that sort of a thing? And I go through it, and quite often that helps people figure out what is the emotion that they're feeling. It's like they're checking in with themselves. Either that, or I have an emotions wheel that has, like, I would say, like maybe 40 different emotions. And I say, just check through these and see which one of these connect with you. But the biggest thing is to identify the emotions that you're feeling. And the more specific you can be, the more precise you can be about an emotion, is the more information you can get from it. Okay. So it's one thing to say, I'm feeling really angry about you coming into the house with your shoes. But then when I show you the emotions wheel, you might probably notice it and say, okay, what I'm feeling is fear.
Yeah,
What I'm feeling is
fearful.
I'm having fear. Yeah. What I'm feeling is vulnerability. What I'm feeling is some anxiety. What I'm feeling is being ignored. That my feelings are being ignored by you. So I'm feeling a little bit of rejection. I'm feeling not important enough to you. I'm feeling, so there's a whole lot packed in underneath that anger, but you have to kind of sit with it quietly, ask the right questions to get out the precise, to tease out the precise emotions you're feeling. And then I seem to remember with you, Stacey, I then said, okay, so now let's finish these sentences for me, please. I feel angry because you just finish. Whatever comes to mind, just throw it out there. Sort of a thing. And you did that really quickly. I mean, you had it, you're like, actually, now that you say so, you know, this is what makes me angry. I mean, I couldn't keep up. Like, hold on.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we identified what are the thought processes that are fueling these emotions. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's important. And then once you sit with that, you realize, hold on a second, these feelings are quite justified. I mean, what are these feelings telling me? It's telling me something is important. You know, it's important to me that you keep our family safe.
Yeah.
That's why I'm feeling vulnerable.
It's like it brings clarity, is really what it is. And the emotion is signaling that there is a need for clarity.
Absolutely.
What do you need to get clear about so that you can take an action, maybe?
Absolutely. And that's when, you know, you're looking beyond the emotion to
Yeah.
what is the message behind it, because that's what you can do something about. That's what you can control. You can't control the emotion. The emotion is our God-given gift. We're designed to feel a whole range of emotions. So stop wasting time to shut them down, box them away, avoid them, go around, la 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 la. Just sit with them. Take them in so that you can figure out what's important to me. What does this emotion, what does your pain tell you about what's important to you?
Oh, that's good. Oh, that's good. One last question. Gosh, this just seems like the time is never enough, right? And Kamala is out waiting, so I'm gonna add her and then just ask you this last
Sure.
question. How do you process that with someone else? You know, because I mean, you're going to be offering. We have therapy sessions that are going to be offered by Sonia as well, guys, which you'll be able to submit for. But I think a lot of times we try to solve the problem on our own, especially when you're dealing with your partner. Hi, Kamala, welcome. So, how do you process that? Like if you're upset, your partner upset, do you say, you know what, I got to process my emotions. Let's just step away for a few minutes. You know, like how do you process that with someone, you know, without adding fuel to the fire, so to speak?
Right. Okay. So here's the thing. A lot of what's happening is because, how do I put it? Two people in a relationship, I wish I could draw a number line for you. Two people in a relationship have some unmet needs, okay, at a given time. There's something I need that I'm not getting, okay? However, too often, and because that need is not met, I'm having these emotions. That's the reality, okay? But how we've kind of been trained to handle that situation is to point a finger at our partner and say, you this, you that, you are the problem, okay?
Right.
And that creates a lot of distraction. So our partner, we don't even get to what our needs are. We don't even get to how we're feeling. Our partner certainly can't get there because we haven't expressed that. Our partner gets distracted in defending or counter blaming, that sort of a thing. And that's where things just fall apart. And the center can't hold, as they say, right? If we can get to a place with our partners where we can say, I'm feeling so X, Y, and Z right now, because this is what's happening and this is the effect it's having on me. This is how I need you to shine for me. Can you do this to help me contend with what's important to me? Then your partner has nothing to defend. Your partner has nothing to counteract. Your partner has only to say, I can do that for you, or I don't think I've got it right now, whatever. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's changing the conversation from it being about our partner's flaws more to, guess what? This is my internal experience, and it's telling me this about myself and us and what I need. Can you do this for me?
But I think
so the shoes. So the last thing with the shoes story, it is, I'm feeling panicked, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling worried. This is intensifying my uncertainty. When you come in with these shoes on and I haven't observed you taking the precautions. I need your help to feel reassured that we are going to get through this okay. I need you to help me with that. That's a very different approach.
No, that's really good, because what comes clear from me is that it's almost like we're trained to say, instead of saying what I need, we're trained to say, this is what you're doing. This is what you're doing to me, or you're doing this and it's making this happen to me. Instead of saying,
exactly.
And even a lot of times too, we have to preface the what I need, what them doing. And it's not going to work, because what happens is they just get stuck in the what they're doing part. They're not hearing the what you need part, So
not to mention how we not only talk about today, we bring down last week and last year, and it's from long time. And remember, and it's the same thing I was talking about when, and so on and so forth. And
yes.
our partner can only digest one thing at a time.
Yes.
So can we.
And we are afraid of, Kamala, is your camera working? I don't see you. Hi, there you are.
Hi, Kamala.
This is Sonia, Kamala.
Hey,
Sonia. Hi.
Hey, we know each other.
Okay. Yeah, we're doing soft handovers. So I'm inviting persons that are joining next to be in the present conversation. So what we have been learning from Sonia, and I one of the reasons why you're my therapist is because you have a teaching way. And I find that I tend to have more access to that. Like, I don't like when people make me feel crazy. I like to know that I am learning about myself and about the tools I need to manage my mind and my emotions, right? And so what we've been learning from Sonia this evening is just about identifying emotions and feelings when they come up, and how they come up for us, sensing them in your body, and how to process those, and I talked about being hooked by the emotion and unraveling the knot that you create, And then we just, we were kind of talking a little bit about through a particular example of different feelings that we could be having now when we're in the house with our partners, a lot more. And just the challenges that some of us face in that situation, right? And just kind of walking us through the different examples of how you could help yourself. What are the tools you can use to help yourself in dealing with that situation? So I think that last point of expressing your needs and not blaming a person or talking to the person about what they're doing is so critical. And so I am taking that under advisement, absolutely. And I'm taking it under advisement. I hope my honey's watching. I'm taking it under advisement so that I can remind you, honey, of telling me what you need. And you can remind me to tell you what I need instead of telling you what you're doing or you telling me what I'm doing. Yes, love that. Thank you so much. And as shared, Sonia is going to be offering a couple of therapy sessions. And what we want you to do is to, in the comments, just leave what you took away from Sonia's session in order to qualify for that. So thank you so much, Sonia, for joining. I really appreciate you.
Stacy, thank you so much. It's always great spending time with you. I learn about myself too. I learn so much more. You're so articulate. You're so in touch with yourself. So thank you very much for the times we spent together, you know. And thanks for this opportunity as well.
Awesome. No, thanks so much. So have a wonderful evening and I'll see you soon.
Okay, take care. Bye now.
Bye.